Hello and welcome to this episode of Unbound. I'm Nicola Humber, author of Unbound and founder of the Unbound Press. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Katie Brockhurst, who is author of Social Media for a New Age. So welcome, Katie.
Hello, good to see you.
Yay, fantastic to be having this conversation today. Katie and we've been connected for a little while now, probably a couple of years. We share a publisher. We both published our books around the same time last year. Yeah. And we met in person, I think, around this time last year at the Mind Body Spirit.
It was at Mind Body Spirit,
Yeah, which has just happened again. And I wanted to get Katie on because social media is such a huge topic, particularly I think for us who are unbound and want to do things in this kind of unbound free way. And it's like, how can we use social media in a way that feels like we're being fully expressed and expressing ourselves in this really authentic way, and also that doesn't take up all of our time. I think, Katie, we were talking just before we came on about how much time and space we want for ourselves. And I know a lot of people will be feeling the same. So
massively so, yes. It's a huge thing that comes up, this actually people feeling very bound by social media. This, I've got to show up, I've got to post X amount of times, I've got to do this, that it becomes a chore and doesn't become fun anymore.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that word bound there, Katie, and I do normally start these conversations by asking, can you think of a particular time in your life or a particular situation where you felt particularly bound? And how did you move beyond that?
Juicy question. I would say in a more recent past. Well, I mean, there's so many examples, I would say, Nicola, but one was actually when I was running my business. I had set up my own business in 2007, and I'd say come 2012, 2013, I'd got an office in central London, I'd got staff. It suddenly become this thing that I was bound by. And I started to realize as it was growing that it was taking me away from the work that I loved. So that I was starting, just to feel very restricted in that space. And I went on a retreat of Lynn Frank's, and signs were dropping in all the time. Different kind of work opportunities were coming in for the agency, but I was like about and wanting to do or not wanting to do. And then I went on this retreat with Lynn, and it was like a women's leadership retreat, and she just said to me, you don't look like this kind of person who wants to be running an agency for the rest of their lives. Really, take it from someone who's run big agencies, being a consultant. And my body knew instantly. I knew as soon as I was allowed, given the permission to explore that as a possibility, that all of a sudden I was flooded with enthusiasm again, and I was flooded with ideas and that sense of being constrained. And it was like, I have to make the choice, and I had to make a very difficult choice. And that was actually to wrap up the company and go solo as a consultant. So, I had to do the unraveling, which was one of the bravest things I think I've ever done, because you've got people who've got jobs and all of those things that you have to take into account and consideration. And so I tried to do it as consciously and as carefully as I could. I don't know if I necessarily got it all right at the time, but I did it and I moved through it, and my life has changed infinite amounts as a result.
Fantastic. And it's interesting, as you're speaking, I'm thinking, these things, what we create can look like successful from the outside. It's like, oh, wow, and actually it can feel incredibly binding at the same time and restrictive.
I was a managing director, I had an office, you know, and what looked like a company that was growing and doing well, absolutely all of those things. But I had to take my ego out of that equation too, and be like, what is it that I really love doing, and what is it that I want to do? And I tried to involve actually the team in that. I was the phrase that got me was that whole, if something isn't working, you don't keep trying to do the same things, you come up with a new model. So I was just like, I don't enjoy being a boss or your boss or anyone's boss. I just didn't. And I even was like, it was a limited company. And I was like, even the words are limiting. It's a limited company. Whereas a sole trader is a sole trader. I was like, yeah, even the words are telling me.
I love that.
I was like, okay, you know, so let's try and do this differently. Let's work, you know, and as much as I didn't like being their boss, really, they didn't like having a boss. They're always trying to, you know, it was always, you know, no one really wants, I don't know, to be owned. And there's this feeling of ownership when you're hiring and employing people in that kind of traditional office environment, I found anyway. So I was just like, I have to break out of this.
Yeah. And you talk there about kind of taking your ego out of it and creating a new model. And as you're kind of talking about those things, it makes me think immediately of social media and your approach to social media and what you share around that.
Yes.
And this is such a fast moving area. Like you released Social Media for a New Age last year around this time.
Yes.
And you're already working on the second kind of iteration of that, because so much has changed even over the past year.
Yes, massive amounts of change. And it's so interesting, like when I was writing the first book, I'd write about something and then it would appear in the media. And I've been writing and researching over the last 2 or 3 months for this next iteration, and it's almost like it's just every week there's more and more news stories, there's people speaking out, there's talk of like Facebook needing to be broken up, or there's talk of, you know, Zuckerberg in his role, like should he both be chairman and you know, the big CEO. So there's like so many layers of this story, it feels like, going on, and it feels like a story now. It's like a story that's unfolding, and we're all players, you know, we're all in the story as well. So everything from the use of our data and advertising, but also I read a really interesting book around like digital decluttering and how to sort of step back from social media as well. And that was really interesting because I learned about addictive design. And that's been huge for me on a personal level. So I've started to really watch my social media usage, and I am hunting for dopamine. It's without a doubt, I catch myself and I'm either looking for information or I'm looking for connection and validation, all which create this dopamine in the body. And that's been done on purpose. So even when you like pull down on your newsfeed to refresh your newsfeed, if you notice in your body, you'll probably get like a fluttering in the tummy or maybe up around the solar plexus. And it's that, what you can do me now, Facebook. Information snacks, you know, it's like, and that feeds the addiction and fuels all of that in our system. So that's had a huge impact on me as well, and where my writing's going, and also how we show up on social media too.
Yeah. So interesting. And, you know, one of my kind of key values, one of the things that I kind of want to create and experience like every day, moment to moment, is this feeling of connection. And so kind of got this love-hate relationship with social media, because it does, you know, we're doing this on Facebook Live right now. We're on Facebook. It's you know, it's a way for us to connect with each other and like share with other people.
Yeah.
So we have this incredible tool that we can use to connect with others.
Yeah.
And also, like you say, it's also incredibly addictive. I mean, I notice that even though I'm aware of it and like trying to moderate my use of social media, I will know in the moment I am doing this like just to distract myself or to get a hit. I know it.
Get a hit.
Still,
yeah.
I'm doing it.
I will go, I have my certain apps. So I'll have email, Facebook, Instagram. Now I start to do LinkedIn. LinkedIn's in there, and YouTube. And I have I'm hunting for different things from the different platforms. And it's also different as to if I've posted recently or not. There also becomes that looking for, and it's not just validation, it is connection. But equally, it's very interesting that I know when I get a lot of connection, I also shy away from it slightly. So I'll get lots of lovely comments and I'm like, replying to comments. So it's this really odd relationship, but that hopping around the apps, I'll put my phone down and I'll be like, okay, I've checked everything. And then there's again that flutter, and it's like I almost go to pick it back up again. I have to like smack my hand and go, you just checked.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing in the world will have changed because you haven't checked your social media for 5 minutes.
I know. Yeah. So what can we do? I mean, obviously, you know, Katie, this is a challenge for everyone. It's a challenge for you, and you,
yeah.
You know, this is your kind of area that you focus on. So have you got any kind of ways of
tell you the biggest thing for me has been two things. Using screen time, the reporting, to look at actually how long I'm spending per day and on which apps. So there's a level of consciousness that I'm really bringing to it, because it does make me feel quite sick when I get that screen time report and it says, you're up by 30%. You spend like 7 hours a day on your mobile phone. I'm like, oh God, really? And then the other thing has been to actually go out the house without it.
Yeah.
And that took quite a lot, because it's my safety thing. What if I need to get hold of someone? What if someone needs to get hold of me? What if this? What if that? So actually, when I was recently in Thailand, and the time difference is obviously I've got a good 6 hours before England wakes up. So I was like, no one is going to need to get hold of me because everyone's asleep. So I would try and go out in the morning without my phone at all and just be in trust that I didn't be, you know, because it's your camera, because it's this, it's because that, but that stops any checking because you just don't have it. So yeah, check it. Because that was something else I saw. So I was away in this beautiful paradise island, and everyone is sat there on their mobile phones. They're on the beach, they're on their mobile. I would walk the beach in the morning and do like 5K, and there'd be people walking up the beach with it. I'd be like, no, let's ditch it. But you know, people are using it to count how far they've walked or do this or do that. And so I started to tell my friend, I was like, please just like leave it at home and let's both be without it. And then, yeah, but it's crazy how much they've taken over.
Yeah, we never used to have them. We used to go out because we never had phones. So I know.
Yeah.
So what are the big changes in social media that you're seeing, Katie?
So the big thing is a shift from what's called the town square to the living room. And Mark Zuckerberg actually wrote a big article about this that he released at the beginning of March. And then he talked about it again at the big F8 conference last month. And really what that is, it's well, there's Facebook's version of it, and then there's my interpretation of it, obviously. Zuckerberg is very much trying to own it. is. He wants us all to stay within their platforms. So what he's saying is this: the town square, which is the main news feed, but the living room is like a group space, or particularly like messenger apps. So Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp. So where we're splitting into smaller groups and then we're having conversations. He's very much said that Facebook is geared up to be the town square rather than the living room, but that they're going to be making changes as part of their ongoing, ever-evolving iteratingness, that they're going to be shifting to more of it being the living room. Now, how I see that is that, Facebook is the town square. When you think about posting on your Facebook profile, say, you've got people you're at school with, you've got old colleagues, people you've met traveling, ex-boyfriend, who knows? Like, you've got such a range of people, particularly in that space. Now, that is also the thing that can't be replicated. Like everyone I spoke to about this, and I talked to quite a lot of people when I was in Thailand, they will say they couldn't do without Facebook because there's just no place where they've got old friends and where they've got these people. And, for those people there, particularly because they're traveling, like that is a connection point for them that they couldn't do without. And I completely agree. I can't see there ever being another platform where you can find everyone in the way that you can find people on Facebook. So we have to accept that. Okay, so that's our town square. My thing is, do we really want to trust Facebook with our living room? I don't think I'd let them in my front door, because at the end of the day, they're just trying to monetize everything. And I get that, but there's a reason all of these things are free and everything. So I think when we're thinking personally, like actually probably WhatsApp is a good living room space. It's encrypted, like privacy is also part of that. But I think when we're thinking about our businesses, I think thinking about other places that we can create that living room environment is an interesting and wise move at this point in time. I don't know that I want to trust Facebook, because again, it's all eggs in one basket for everything then. So I've been doing quite a bit of research around platforms like Patreon, which I've been playing with on and off, for a while. I'm personally not having a ton of success there. I think people are also like, if we get into a world where we have to, there's a paywall for everything, that's also going to get quite expensive.
Yeah.
If we're paying for Spotify, we're paying for Netflix, we're paying for this, we're paying for that, then we're paying for also membership sites and Patreons and everything. So there's an interesting dynamic and dance for us to do around this, and I haven't fully got the answers for it yet, because we want to receive back for the work that we do in the world. I don't want everything I do on social media just to then attract clients necessarily. I also want it to do greater good in the world as well. And I do want to create spaces that are more intimate, to be able to have, closer conversations. But I'm still trying to see if the tech exists that really supports that.
Yeah. And as it stands at the moment, I mean, you've talked about Patreon there, but are there any other alternatives that you found?
Yeah, so there's one called Disciple that's very interesting. Yeah, they're using Facebook and they're doing Facebook ads on, and I actually got to talk to the founder amazingly and interview him as research for the book. And at the moment, it's quite a high price point for their white label, but it is an app. People like Peter Jean, who wrote Earth is Hiring, she's using it. So I think you can have like a free layer, but also then there can be paid for content, or there could be subscription. So it builds, and it's much more based around community, so that actually people within the community can get to know each other in a Facebook kind of style way, but based around a topic or a movement or whatever that might be, which I like. They told me they're going to bring out like a £50 a month model later in the year. And I think that's the point where I would be talking with clients about it, rather than the one at the moment is more like 500 a month, which is quite an investment, really. Yeah. And I think you already have to have a big audience to convert that, to make that viable from a financial perspective. But I like their tech. Their tech seems quite interesting, but I haven't had a full chance to play with it. I've just seen like a demo version of the app. I like Patreon, and you can put out free content on there, but I think it lacks community, lacks people being able to talk to each other and things in that space in quite the same way at this point in time. Who's to say that won't change? And then the other one is Mighty Networks, which Yoga with Adrienne, she uses Mighty Networks, and that was set up by a lady who set up something called the Ning Networks.
Oh yeah.
Excuse me, back in the day. Yeah, I've got a little bit of a cough. Sorry.
That's okay. I'll have some water while you.
I know, I had to put the central heating on today. I think that's what set me off.
It's a bit like that over here today, actually. It's not great. So there are alternatives out there.
Yeah. They're definitely starting to pop up. But I think it's this, and your mailing list could be it. Like, you get to choose what platforms are your living room. How are you communicating, interacting? What, it's like deciding what the living room looks like. Like a Facebook group can be the living room, but I also think Facebook groups get so big and you're still being tailored by an algorithm on some level.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm just quite keen to move out of that. And then the other thing that I've been supporting is this platform called Campfire Convention. And that's and that's different again. That's not really the living room. That is the campfire, because that is about actually people coming together to share stories through a platform and connect around social change. So it's less about kind of self-promotion or even creating your own space. It's actually kind of, how can we gather with others and share and then support each other and the planet at the same time, which excites me as another avenue of social media.
Absolutely. And what I love, actually, when you're talking about the living room and the campfire, it takes the emphasis off numbers, which I know is something we've spoken about before, Katie, but there is, and there still is so much emphasis on numbers when it comes to social media.
Yes.
And
did you see there was a story that I'd seen that someone forwarded me yesterday, and then I saw on LinkedIn that there was an influencer with like 3.2 million followers on Instagram, and she got a deal with a merchandise company to do some t-shirts, and she couldn't even sell 32 t-shirts to her 3.2 million followers. And I mean, I think it was 3.2, but it was in the millions anyway.
Yeah.
So they were saying, this is the proof that the influencer tide is turning, and I think it comes back to also like this: where are you at in your social media journey? You could have 200 people, but those 200 people really love what you're doing, and then you do a call out. I mean, I've got 5,000 on my Instagram, but because of the way that the algorithm works, I'm only reaching, up to 5% of those people if I'm lucky. I had a work scenario where a big client project had ended, and I was like, oh, I could do with some new work coming in. I did one post and I got 6 new clients.
Wow.
And I just think, like that, like I was like, okay, so my Instagram's working for me. I don't need 100, 200 likes on a post, because actually the right people are listening. And when I put that invitation out there to say there was space to work with me, it worked for me. But I think as well, when we've been taught to get into selling mode all the time, like I very rarely sell. I try to just share. And, I think that also creates a different relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is about the relationship, isn't it? It's the relationship with each of the individual people who are in our network, in our social network.
But it's also like the platform. So I've been playing with this word of platform, and it's like the book is a platform, and you write a book that becomes a platform, and that's an extension of your social media, and it's all an extension of you. So that kind of comes back to using it as a tool to share your work with the world, rather than it being about likes and follows.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I always think that about books. When somebody has a copy of your book, it's like there's a part of you in their living room, or wherever they're reading it. Yeah. So when do you think the new book will be out, Katie?
I'd set myself a bit of a target of September. So we'll have to wait and see whether that aligns itself or not. If not September, then by the end of the year, I think I would like to, because it's just so current and constant. Like you said, even if it's a short book, it doesn't need to be a big book, just to get this new information out there.
Absolutely. I can imagine though that because there's this continual change, you must be like, when do I actually say, right, this is it?
No, I'm like writing about something, and then another big news story. I'm like constantly sending myself emails from Apple News with oh right, somebody else has said something pretty big that I need to include in that chapter.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the important thing is, we want to be using any social media in a way that feels good for us, because it's so easy to feel overwhelmed. And like you said, with these constant news stories coming through, it's like, okay, bringing it back to what feels good for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so. Yeah. How does it feel in the body? And not feeling like we've got to show up all day long. In fact, it's like taking that week or two, if that's where you're at, and trusting that when you come back to it with that right energy, then it's going to be received by the right people.
Yeah, absolutely. So much we could talk about around this. And I'm sure we will have another conversation, certainly when the next book comes out, Katie. In the meantime, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Instagram has to be my favorite. So KTK._social media angel. If you put social media angel in there, I pop up. Or social media for a new age, there as a hashtag that you'll be able to find me through as well. And then my website, which is socialmediaforanewageage.com, you can send me an email through that directly. Also direct comms is welcome.
Yeah, fantastic. And if you haven't read Social Media for a New Age already, I recommend it to everyone. It resonates so much, certainly with the people that I'm connected with, Katie. So
thank you, Nicola. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you for the work you're doing in the world. It is so needed, because it's so easy to fall into overwhelm.
Amazing how many people don't like posts about not liking posts, though. And my ego has to be like, okay then. I want to like stuff about not liking stuff.
I haven't got any likes.
Still gets me, even though I'm totally cool with it.
I notice my own behavior. Sometimes I will see a post and I will love it, and I don't necessarily click.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know that I do that myself, but sometimes
Yeah,
when
I've had since I got back as well, be like, oh, I saw all you know, what you got up to in Thailand. And I was like, really? Like, I would not have known that they were seeing my post. So, and that's the other thing. We never know who we're inspiring when we show up, even when we've not got those likes and things happening.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. We need to continually remind ourselves of that.
All the time.
Oh, Katie, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure as always, and looking forward to social media for a new age iteration.
Yeah,
sometime soon-ish.
Ish, yeah.
Yeah. Just had that. Oh, all right, my love. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon for another episode of Unbound. Bye.